Have you ever heard the story of Sacagawea? The day where they were on the river in one of their smaller boats, and the wind was so strong, the sails were up on the boat, and the wind was so strong that it nearly capsized the boat. They were taking on water. Her husband, Charbonneau, I think is his name, was freaking out. He was couldn't swim and was terrified, and so was praying to God. All the while, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And while this is all happening, on board this particular ship happened to be all of the necessary documents for this trip. There was like the medicine, all of the papers they had been compiling, like all of their instruments that they needed for navigation. Everything was on this ship. And so if this went over, like they were done for sure. And while this drama was happening, Sacagawea, with her little one on her back, was reaching over the boat and pulling in these boxes that had almost like fallen over, and was just gathering these items. And the people who were on the shore, it was both Lewis and Clark were actually on the shore, and they had noted like how calm she was and how in the midst of this crazy storm, Sacagawea was still able to have composure and not be terrified, not be guided by fear. She was just doing what needed to be done to rescue and save the trip and just staying focused in the moment. And this story always stuck with me and really struck me as one of this grand dichotomy, of course, of the one focused in fear and the one who is just present in the moment and able to stay grounded and calm. And so today we have a storm approaching, and I was thinking of the birds out there. And oftentimes people worry about the birds and they think, gosh, if I'm cold, they're cold. Or if it's windy and it looks scary, they're scared, you know? And so I just want to offer up a different perspective today. So we're going to embrace that today as we go through this journey of the bird sit together. I hope you'll stick around and enjoy this practice. Welcome back to the Mindful Bird Sit. If you're new here, my name is Kristi, and I help people connect deeply with birds and nature while boosting their confidence, elevating their skills, and helping them to fall more in love with life. If that's something you want to do, be sure to subscribe and stick around. All right, let's get started. Maybe not, you know. One of my close friends actually has made a point of going out during storms when it's crazy, windy, rainy, torrential, and he's seen some incredible things during these storms with animals, like animals still feeding, animals still out there doing their things when we're all like hunkered inside and scared. And so today I just wanted to just give us a different perspective, you know, just allow us to try on another perspective. So we're going to play with that today during the sit. And so without further ado, go ahead and find your place, whether you're inside or outside, and take a nice deep breath in. And let it go. Just shaking off all of the bits and pieces that you might have been carrying with you to come to this present moment, whatever it may be. Take another deep breath in. And as you exhale, just let it all go, kind of shaking off like the leaves, like the pine needles just falling from the tree during a windy day, or the leaves falling from the trees. Just let it shake off those pieces that you don't need right now. You're just here with us, giving yourself this space and time to be present. And so as you're breathing, as you're taking your breath, notice what your heart rate is. Just notice, can you feel your heart beating inside your chest? You may have to really slow down and quiet down to hear that, to listen in for that. And then as you're tapping into your heartbeat, also notice your breath. Notice how far your breath travels into your body, or maybe how not so far it travels into your body. When it comes in, does it fully expand? Are you receiving all that you can right now in your breath and then letting it fully go? You can also take stock and notice your posture right now. Just first notice it. Notice how you're sitting. Are you leaning forward a little bit? Is any part of you sort of hunched over? Maybe you're upright and tall. And then after you notice your posture, notice how you're sitting. If you want to adjust, you can. If you prefer to be sitting in a different way, maybe a bit more upright with your head tilted nicely up toward the, well, straight ahead, but your top of your head, your skull reaching up toward the sky. And then now you can feel your feet or your bottom on the earth. And some of you may have the actual earth underneath your feet, and some of you may have a floor of some sort. If it's the floor, just allow yourself to travel down through the layers of the floor until you reach the ground beneath you. Just imagine, what is the ground beneath me like right now? Maybe it's hard and compact. Is it cold? And then go down a little bit deeper. What's underneath all of that? Feel around a little bit. Let your own roots expand and explore the earth beneath your feet right now. Is she quiet and still? Or maybe there's some movements down there in the earth. And on your next inhale in, you can bring up whatever goodness you found down there, whatever nourishment and nutrients. You can just imagine those coming up through your feet, up through your legs, your torso, into your chest, your shoulders, all the way up your neck, into your head. And then letting it go. Good work. And so now if your eyes are closed, you can keep them closed for the moment. And if they're not, you can close them if you'd like, or keep them open, whatever you prefer. We're going to be sending our listening, our hearing out. We're going to stretch ourselves, but first we'll start inward. So start with the nearest sound you can hear. For some of you, that might be your breath. Maybe it's your heartbeat. And then, without thinking too much about it, just choose a direction to start to travel around yourself in a spiral. So starting close to you, maybe you now can hear some rustling on your clothing. Maybe there's an insect or a sound, a little bit further, maybe arm's distance away. So as you start to spiral out, just take note of the sound, acknowledge it, and then move around further and further out like a big seashell, like those seashells that you can listen to in your ear where you can hear the ocean in them. Just allow yourself to become one of those shells. You're listening to become one of those shells, spiraling out further and further and further. Is there any direction where you don't hear any sound, or maybe you ignored whether you intended to or not? So send your attention there right now. And for some of you, like myself, who are inside right now and you have a window cracked, a lot of the sound that you'll hear might be coming from that particular space. But do your best to keep your attention also drawing in the other directions, even though you might be indoors, there might be walls around you. Keep your attention attuned to all the sounds in all directions. Good work. So now you can open your eyes just gently if you had them closed, and allow yourself to find a point off in the distance to focus on. Just choose one point. Maybe it's a leaf, maybe it's the crotch of a tree or a bit on your neighbor's roof, and just choose one element to focus on for a moment. And then in the same kind of spiral or ripple, allow your vision now to expand slowly in all directions while you keep that center point. So keep that point of focus so you're looking at one point off in the distance. And now your eyes are slowly, slowly, slowly expanding in all directions. So your vision is taking in as much as possible. And so as you stretch it right and left, your vision is going to slowly start to soften. It might even become a bit blurry. And allow yourself to do the same up and down. Really stretch. How far up can you look and how far down can you see while you're still looking at the same plane, at the same level of that point you were focused on. And as your vision starts to become soft and a little bit blurry, are you able to pick up any subtle movements that maybe before you hadn't quite noticed? Are you still listening to the sounds that are around you in all directions? Beautiful. Let yourself just stay in this softened vision for a few moments. We'll just stay in here in silence, just taking it all in, both auditorily with your eyes and also remembering to smell the air as well, noticing the scent on the air this morning. So let's begin first with, since we're in a quiet space, I'm going to have us try a few things in just a little bit. But first, we'll just start with our mind. So, as I was sharing before, how sometimes during storms we start to worry about the birds, we start to worry about the wildlife. So, as a shift in perspective and something just to play with today while we're sitting, so we'll sit in silence for the next couple of minutes as we explore this. I'd like you just to imagine if you see a bird or something out there, and let's say for a lot of you, I think it is storming at the moment. I know there's a big storm moving through the country. Others, there may not be, that's okay. But just consider the next time you see a bird, or maybe it's a squirrel or whatever it might be, the next time you see something, even if it's a tree moving, just consider a different thought. Like if a thought pops in your head of like, oh no, it's really windy, they might crash, you know? Just think, wow, they might actually enjoy this. Like, what if they're actually seeking that out? What if they actually want to test their skills, you know, and push themselves a little bit? What if there's joy in what they're doing? I'm not saying there is. I'm just saying, just to counter and just to try on a different thought process. Let's just play with that for a little bit. So we'll stay in silence for the next couple of minutes.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Thanks, Susie. Sorry, that's funny. I thought I was unmuted before. Anyway, I won't go into the whole story. My screen told me I was muted, so I did it. I muted myself again. I don't know why. All right. So I think you heard most of the story about the little kid. So just imagine, no? Okay. Oh, well, I'll try again. All right. So, first of all, good work, everybody. Second of all, I'm going to give you just a little image to hold on to. We're going to keep going with this for just a minute longer. So just think about that time when you were a young one and you were all bundled up in your snowsuit and you were perfectly happy. You were fine. You were playing outside in the snow, but it was your parent that, at least for me, that was like, "It's cold. You have to come back inside and get warm," right? Or some adult figure was probably like, "Oh no, you have to come in and get warm." And so you were fine. So just remember that oftentimes, again, it's not always, but oftentimes the animals have what they need to stay warm, right? And to take care of themselves. So let just imagine again that they want to be out there, that they're actually enjoying this. This is their choice. They would choose to be out there right now. So allow that thought to come into your mind when you see a bird or mammal, whatever it might be. And even if you don't see them, just imagining that right now as you play with this thought. Okay, so now we'll try something kind of fun. So some of you may choose to do this if you feel like you can not fall over and stay stable and balanced. And this is a really, it's not only fun, but it's a really good way to give yourself a different perspective. And it's something that a lot of us did when we were kids. I still try to do every once in a while when I have a chance, maybe when nobody's watching. And that is to stand and be upside down. And so for those of you who can, you can even like hold on to like a chair or something and kind of flip yourself upside, not flip yourself, but just like bend over and and look at the world from that vantage point. Now, if that's not something you want to do in this very moment, at least minimally tip your head as far sideways as you can for the next minute. We're just going to hold this for like a minute or so and just look at the world from that vantage point. Just tip your head in either direction as far as you can go and just look at the world. And I'm going to actually go stand upside down where you can't see me in the camera. And I'm going to do that for the next minute. So have fun doing whatever you'd like to do in this moment. Okay, good work. So if you're having fun, you can stay in that position. I'm not going to make you come back from that, but if you'd like to just sit upright for a moment, you can do that too. And we're going to try on another gesture to give us a new perspective, a different perspective. But just hold that experience in your mind if something occurred to you or a feeling, a thought, whatever it may be. Just hold on to that for a moment. And now we often play with our eyes closed, but right now I'd like us to play with our ears closed. So we're going to do this for 20 breaths. So you won't have to be scared of missing out on anything because you can't hear it. But I'm going to ask you just to block your ears or cover your ears in just a moment and just sit with that. Just be still. Just you can use owl eyes as you're looking outside, but just close your ears and just notice what the world is like without hearing any sound. And we'll do this for 20 breaths, like I said.
Muted again.
That's funny. I've been doing that all day. All right. I was just saying, good work, everybody. And take a next moment to offer gratitude or a blessing to those ones that you connected with today, whether they be birds or trees or who the snow, the rain, whatever it may be, the wind. And just take a moment to do that in your own. All right. So thank you for coming. If anyone needs to go, you're welcome to head out. I just want to say gratitude and thank you for being present and playing along with us today. And if you'd like to stay for our chat where we share about our experience and talk more bird nerd stuff, then you're welcome to stay for that as well. So who would like to start us off and share something from their experience this morning? Yeah, Anne, please go for it.
Well, my experience was more yesterday afternoon. I went to take my walk. I'm in Ohio, so we are in the middle of the storm. And it was about 4 o'clock, and the snow's coming down. The roads are getting covered, and I drove just around my country block. And I was anxious in the car, is the stops is going to be slippery at the stop signs. And when I got out to take my walk in the middle of the snow, I was then more at ease. I felt comfortable in this snow, the softness in my body walking. And as I'm doing this and the snow starts coming down, I heard the sandhill cranes still in the middle of this storm. I can't see them. And I can hear them migrating south. I'm in the migration path. I can hear them. I can see them go south. I never see them go north. But I'm thinking, oh, I hope they're okay. And I'm thinking, they're fine. They know where they're going. You know where you're going. Enjoy this. Go home then, and that's what they're doing. And it was just that calmness. Those sandhill cranes, maybe they were a little late, maybe they should have started a little earlier, but they're going to be fine. So it was just the safeness where I felt, where we were grounded. In the vehicle, I felt nervous and anxious. But when I got out, I was safe, I was comfortable. So, and that's the way I felt today. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your story, Anne. Beautiful. And yes, a wonderful moment, a gift oftentimes when we can take ourselves out in the storm, the things that we get to, I mean, obviously being safe, of course, some things that my friend told me about, I was like, you're lucky you're still alive, kind of thing. But anyway, I think, yeah, sometimes putting ourselves out there in the discomfort, we can often have some of the most magical experiences. Yeah, thanks, Anne. Great. Who else would like to share? Well, I'll tell you one of my experiences from this morning. When I did the upside down part, I was looking out and I could see the treetops and they were, moving in the wind. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, they're like paintbrushes. And I just thought, like, then in that moment, they didn't become scary to me because oftentimes, like, trees blowing in like high winds is a scary image for me to think about and to be out amongst. But when I thought of them as just paintbrushes, like painting the sky, and that because they were like this, it was like these paintbrushes just like painting on a palette or on a, canvas. And it just felt beautiful. And again, it's like, I think it's helpful for me to shift my perspective, to think of the world from a vantage point that I normally don't think of it from. Like, I don't know how the birds see the world, It's certainly not through my eyes, not through my modern woman, comfort in my home, dry eyes. So yeah, maybe they see the trees as paintbrushes and they're not scared of them, because for them it's the place of safety and comfort and whatever. So yeah, I was just grateful for that. Just, it was only a second. It was just a moment that thought came in. I was like, that's so cool. Sweet. All right. Yeah. Julia, please.
Okay, well, when I was upside down, I could see my neighbor's house, parts of it, but I had difficulty identifying, and I could tell, well, okay, that's roof and that's wall because of the way it looked. But I had lost my usual reference point, and I thought, and then that, well, like I have as a stable reference point that my feet are on the ground. My feet point down. Okay, all right. And then when we closed up here, I shut out almost all of the sound, and then I could hear my pulse. I could hear my heart beating. I thought, that's there all the time. I just don't notice it. And it's also a part of that baseline reference point that I have. So I thought, okay, so they have their own reference points. One time years ago, I was on the roof of my house and I was seeing through the tops of dogwood and, that smaller trees. And I thought, oh, okay, this is the bird's eye view. So, and then early on, before we did those things, I'm where I can see the bird feeders, and of course, squirrels come into the picture. And this squirrel was all puffed out, and and I thought, yeah, you're feeling really big. It seemed like the squirrels going, oh, now I'm really big. And I'm wondering, how do they have being born in the spring or in the early part of the year, going through that summer, how do they have what they need to go through this? And it must be just in the DNA that they just go ahead and grow those layers of down or, sub fur or, to use when it's needed. That's really pretty intelligent engineering, really.
Yeah,
To make,
absolutely.
because we don't. I mean, yeah. Oh, okay. That's all I had to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we were given something else to be able to make make our layers. But you're right, like just to think of nature providing everything on your body, like your body can take care of you. You don't need anything externally. But that's not totally true with the squirrels. They make their little nests for the winter time, and when the temperatures get too cold they will go and they'll go into torpor and just kind of, they won't hibernate but they'll sleep when it gets really cold for a while. So they do, I suppose, they build a house, you know and bundle up in that way. But a lot of animals have everything that they need, on themselves, and that's just a wonderful thing to imagine, like imagining having everything you needed right there.
And this is a sunny spot right now where I'm seeing the birds and the squirrels. The sun is coming, even though it's 18 degrees, it probably feels better than if it were gloomy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I wonder, I'm just curious about the squirrel patterns. I was thinking about that recently here, during, I just did the Christmas bird count last week, and we have ours late. So mine was just this weekend, and where I was at the cemetery, and I remember noticing, just not consciously necessarily, but sort of subconsciously, I was like, there's no squirrels. There was not a single squirrel I saw all day. And I thought, this is like perfect habitat for squirrels. There should be like hundreds basically like running. It's a beautiful 92-acre. It's a famous, I think it's on like a national registry. It's called Magnolia Cemetery. And it's in this beautiful location. And I just noticed there was no squirrels moving around. And it was after talking to my friend that yeah, he pointed out that there's a certain temperature at which, it's kind of like their comfort zone. And then above that, they kind of go into hiding, and below that they also go and sleep and whatnot. And for us around here, it was one of our colder mornings. We don't usually get temperatures. It's not relative to you guys. It's nothing, this would be like a warm day for you guys. But for us here in this climate, it was a relatively cold day. So yeah, I was just curious about that and the weather and how it impacts the animals. But thanks, Julia, for your astute observations. Sweet. Who else? Susie. Yeah, Jacinth, please. Yeah, go for it. And then, oh, sorry, Susie. I saw your hand moving, so maybe Susie and then Jacinth. Yeah.
So earlier this morning, I was looking out. After we had gotten several inches of snow, there was several inches of snow on the ground, on the roof, on the deck, everywhere. And all of a sudden, one of the bluebirds came flying down and just plopped in the snow on the roof. And my first thought was, oh, I hope he can get out. I hope he's not stuck. So I watched him. He got out just fine. But So that was my first thought. But after you told the story about kids in the snow, I was thinking, oh, I bet that was one of the juveniles. He'd never seen snow before, so he just was trying it out. What'll happen if I just plop down in the snow? So that's my story.
I love that. That's such a cool perspective just to think like right, like even animals have their firsts, right? Like a bird who's never seen snow before and like what would you do, you know? Like who's to say they're not curious? And I mean, we know the crows are. We know the corvid family has that sense of curiosity, but like why wouldn't other birds just be like, "Oh, what's going to happen?" You know? Or maybe it didn't even know how to land. Maybe it thought it was landing on the, you know, like the top. It was like that's the ground, that's solid. And it like was like poof, and it sunk down like, "Oh, I didn't know that was going to happen." That's awesome. I love that. What a cool perspective, Susie. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Sweet. Jacinth, go for it.
Hi, yeah. Um, it's funny when you were saying about how sometimes animals maybe they're okay when they're outside and it's cold and maybe like we don't have to worry about them. And then at the same time there was this squirrel just, hopping in the street and just like going on in the trees around my place and just like minding its business and not looking like it's pretty cold right now. I'm not sure how it is, but it's way below zero and it's quite cold and he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna do my thing. And he was like looking relaxed and then eating some piece of food once in a while, and it didn't look like he was in a hurry and let's go, I have to go hide or whatever. So yeah, I guess, yeah, they're okay. And also with that like upside down exercise, it was interesting because the first second was like, oh geez, this is not fun. And I feel the blood rush to my head and I'm like, what is this? Like it's not even comfortable. And yeah, it just felt really strange. And then yeah, after I guess maybe 30 seconds, it was like, oh, well, all right, this is okay. I guess this is normal or this is whatever. It happens. And again, like that squirrel was coming down the tree head first. So I'm like, well, you know what? They're doing it, so should be all right. So it just felt like, okay, yeah, you could relate to everyday life when sometimes everything that's new or different may seem like upsetting or different, and then you just wait a little bit and you can find some comfort in there. So yeah, good.
Yeah, I love how much you were really in the squirrel's world and you also got to experience like, because the squirrels, you're right, they go like head first, like down the tree, and so getting that like vantage point of like, what would that be like to like be head first? I love it. And it was the same for me too, where I was just like, oh, this is kind of awkward and uncomfortable and it's sort of weird. And like, yeah, it was all in my head first. And then I was just like, okay, just be here, and then it's like, okay, then I kind of got out of my own little like uncomfortable body. Yeah. Right on, Justin. Thank you for that. That's rad. All right. Hey, Joy, please. Thank you. I can give you the button if you want. Let's try that. You see that? I can push it one more time. I can't hear you right now. Let's see. We'll push. There you go. Can you see that button? It should have asked you to unmute. There we go.
Sorry, I think my mouse was frozen. Um, yeah, it's kind of cold here, but nice to be sitting outside and a little bit of sort of lazy snow coming down. So what I was able to observe this morning was the individual snowflakes landing on my coat. And you don't often see that, usually it's clumps, but these were just little individual ones. And of course, they're not melting, so they're just sitting here on my sleeve. And so I can just watch the structure of them. And it's so beautiful. So if you hadn't had this birdsit this morning, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to see that. So thank you very much. That's it for today.
Oh, good, Joy. I'm really glad you were outside and it really didn't. I was like, oh, I should have just done it. But it was more the fragility of my computer that I was worried about, not so much my own fragility. I was just like, oh, if it's raining and it's, whatever. But I like how you said you have yourself a little, looks like a some kind of a cardboard box set up there. That's a good idea. Yeah. Maybe I'll try and think about that next time. Well done. Well done. Sweet. Cindy, yeah, please. Hi.
Hi. So it's here in Central Oregon. It's like overcast, which is strange, gray, and I was comfortable inside, and I thought, oh God, do I want to go out there? So I bundled all up and came out, and the first thing was three harriers were like dancing around together. And I thought, oh, is this romance? Or and I took a look, and they there wasn't a male that I could tell. Of course, a young male I wouldn't be able to tell. But anyway, I think you were talking. I think of birds as being in this survival struggle their whole life. And I don't ever think of them playing. And they were playing. So that was very fun. And then when you said to get upside down, I'm all bundled up, bundle, bundle, bundle. And, the thought of bending in half with all this on in my, I have my snow pants. Anyway, I thought, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to be 70 in May. I don't need to do that. But I thought, come on, Cindy, go for it. And so, I turned around and went upside down and looked out there. And it's weird. It looked like a fisheye lens, the world, instead of when I look normally, because I'm using my brain, I guess, and to think, I've got the layer of my lawn, the layer of the pond, the layer of the pastures beyond, and the layer of the sky. It's like horizontal layers. But when I went upside down, I got this fisheye lens feeling, and now that I'm back up, I can see that is the way it's shaped, more like fisheye because of the pond and the curvature. But I guess, and I thought about that, and I thought a lot of times birding, that's just something I struggle with, is I see what I want to see. I'm trying to just see what's there, but I see what I want to see or what I think I see, and I don't really see what's there. But that's okay. And the last thing I noticed after being here this whole time, first of all, when I plugged my ears, then I was in a microcosm of my own body because I could hear all these noises in my body that I don't hear normally. So that was interesting. But then at the very end, I caught sight, very end, of a great blue heron very, very close to me here on one leg, being very, very still. And like it was there the whole time, like right there doing its like Monday morning bird sit, I guess. And I thought, oh yeah, okay. So that it saw me trying to get upside down and hanging there in my big red snowsuit. I thought, oh my God. I wonder what it thought. Anyway, that's what I have.
I love that. That would have been a really, I think a lot of you probably know Rosemary Moscow. She's a bird cartoonist. You see her, if you don't, look her up on Facebook. She's amazing. And she does these hilarious bird cartoons. And that would have been like a really good, she always does it often from like the vantage point of the birds, like looking at other things, or the birds speaking, but sometimes the birds are talking about people. And that would have been a funny Rosemary Moscow cartoon. Like, what's this lady doing upside down? Who does she think she is? A squirrel? That's great. And I'm glad that you brought up the piece about that we have this perspective that the wildlife is working in a state of survival. It's something that one of my teachers, who was a native man, shared at one point. He didn't say these words specifically, but this idea that even anciently, when we think of like ancient people as all they were doing was surviving, it's like survival of the fittest. That's like what we've been sort of brainwashed to believe that that's what life was about. It was only about survival. And his perspective was that it was so much more. It wasn't just survival for people who were, living connected to the land and wildly. Not that it never was, again, with the birds, not that they're never terrified, not that they're never in danger or never too cold, not that they don't die because of exposure or whatever. Like those things do happen, but the majority of the time it's actually something else. It's not just survival that drives life, right? There's something, there's other things that influence life, and it's good just to ponder that, just to wonder what those are, you know? Yeah. Yeah, Susie, you want to say something, please? Thanks, Cindy, by the way.
Just to extend that a little bit, you really changed my perspective last summer when I said something about a dragonfly that was out in the open, and I commented, isn't it uh, worried about being eaten by a bird or something? And you said back to me that, well, they're not, insects and animals are not always, they're not always just worried about surviving. That ever since then, that has changed my perspective. So just what we were just saying is really important, and the way you think about what's happening with wildlife. They do play too. They have fun, just like we do. I'm sure they laugh too.
Yeah, right. And I think it can be a little insidious, that thought, you know, how it even starts to impact us and our lives and what our lives are for, you know, and this survival, you know, we have to survive, and this fear, right? I know that when I've worked with bird banding in the past, I was always so struck at how when there were certain birds that we'd had that, you know, if they'd been in the net for too long, or, you know, something wasn't so great about the situation for them, how willing they were just to die. Or if a bird was hit by, you know, struck a window, for instance, if I would go out and hold it in my hands for a while, the bird is often just willing to die. You know, it's not like the worst thing in the, like, it wasn't like struck, it wasn't like, oh my God, I gotta live, I gotta live, I gotta live, you know, it was just like, okay, I'm dying, you know, and then it was gonna go. I remember this one hummingbird I held in my hand, and the other researchers had kind of like chalked it up for dead. They were just like, well, maybe just go put it in the tree and it'll just sort of do its thing. And I remember just looking at it, and I was just like, you know, I started talking to it, and I was singing it a song, and I was like telling it the story, whatever. And then at one point I was just like gently blowing on it, you know, and then at some point it just kind of like, you know, sort of like shook its head, and it took a long time. It was like a good 20 minutes or more before it sort of like came back to itself. But like it was so close, I could feel it. It was like its head was, you know, like when if you've ever held a bird that's just about to die, and like they close their eyes and they just sort of like, you know, drop their head, and then they're just gone, you know. And this hummingbird was so close to that, and it was just sort of like, I have a feeling that if I wasn't there in that moment to sort of like inspire it back to life, that it might have just been okay going, you know. And anyway, it just that taught me a lot too of so, and not, again, not that wildlife don't fight for their life, you know. It's like if a gazelle is running away from a cheetah, it's not just gonna, like, the cheetah's coming, it's not just gonna be like, okay, take me, you know. Like, they're gonna fight for their life, they're gonna run away. But when that moment comes, you know, they're like, okay, this is the moment, and I'm going. And I think that, I don't know, that thought comes to me sometimes when I'm thinking about sort of that survival idea, you know, and this need to survive, that somehow I don't know if it was Darwin or, you know, who put that idea, maybe it was someone way before him, you know, that put this idea in our minds about the survival of the species. And I think it's, you know, that's true to some extent. But anyway, it's just something worth playing with and pondering, you know. Precious hummingbird. Yeah, thanks, Cindy. Anyone else want to share their experience from this morning before we head out? I don't know. Okay. Well, it was really a pleasure to be with you all today. Yeah, thank you. And let's see if I have any messages for you all. I don't think so. The birdsong class is coming up this spring. So if you're interested in joining us for another round of birdsong, I hope you do. You can sign up on the website, birdmentor.com, and I still have the discount going right now. I'm not sure how much longer I'll keep that going, but we have the discount going for that. It's an amazing 6-week course. I think a bunch of you have already taken it, and yeah, it really does transform your ability to hear and understand the song of birds. So I hope you'll join us. And other than that, we'll see you next week, okay? Thanks, everybody. Thanks for all your stories. I really appreciate it. Have a beautiful day. Nice to see you, Anne Marie.